Well, where is she if she's not missing?
After everybody went home that night, I went and got her in the old truck and brought her back to the farm. She's hanging out there right now.
Damn, Ed. I swear you got the strangest sense of humor.
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs. Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
Welcome back to Martha Stewart. We have Ed Gein with us today. Well, today, Martha, going to be learning how to make a soup bowl out of a human skull.
Are we going to put pork and beans in it?
Pork and beans. Nothing but pork and beans.
And venison, maybe?
And venison. Yeah.
Yummy.
So you got 9 vaginas is what you want to start.
9? Just
9
That's
vaginas.
a really specific number.
It's Ed Gein Day. Are you excited? We're going to be talking about
Sure.
Ed Gein.
Really? Really?
Oh, God. You know, True Crime Month or True Crime March is almost fucking over here at Night of the Horror File. And man, I don't know. These past episodes, I have felt like an awful human being, first off, because I've been joking. We've joked about rape, child rape, murder, disembodiment. All sorts of stuff you usually aren't supposed to joke about. And it's
cannibalism.
It's been weighing heavy on me. It's been weighing
hasn't.
heavy.
No,
Well,
it
a little
has
bit.
not.
Well, because in the research I've been doing, it's like I start learning about some of these dudes and you're kind of like, you know, I'd have a beer with him. That'd be all right. And then you're like, at what point am I going to realize I'm fucked up? Like, what point is this? Oh my God. But welcome to Night of the Horror File. A podcast where typically we take a horror movie and we show my beautiful wife, Brittany, and then we judge her reaction. And I give a bunch of useless info that nobody wanted. But this month, if you're just joining us, we have been talking true crime. That's right. We've been going through serial killers. And today, I don't know if you classified Ed Gein as a serial killer. I don't.
No.
I mean, he's probably got the lowest body count of the 2 people we covered. I mean, who knows? Henry Lee Lucas might not even had a body count. The confession killer. But like Ed Gein, I don't know. He's more of a DIY kind of guy, you know, like he's just.
What does that mean?
Using all the parts.
Oh.
Making his own bowls and vagina.
Art.
The man was his own Martha Stewart. That's one thing you could say about Ed Gein. But anyway, so what did we watch this week?
I don't know. Probably Ed Gein.
I don't know. Just like Dahmer, we're going to say Ed Gein probably 1,000 times this episode.
Ed, and Eddie.
Ed. Oh, man.
I know. I knew you
that
were
fucking old ass cartoon.
I loved that one.
You just took us back to the 90s or early 2000s. I get the early 2000s and the late 90s so mixed up. I don't even know anymore.
I know.
But what I do know is today's boogeyman is the godfather.
Let me guess.
Of the macabre.
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein. That's right. Ed Gein. So we owe a lot of our favorite genre to Eddie. He was part of the inspiration for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The person who wrote this book Psycho, in which the Alfred Hitchcock movie was based on, lived about 45 minutes away from Eddie, the town at the time. Mm-hmm. And so that book kind of takes some inspiration from that as well. And the movie takes a ton of inspiration from Ed Gein. I do wonder, because you have seen Psycho.
Yes, I have.
And you have seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What the hell? There's 2 movies I've seen?
Holy shit. Brittany has finally seen things.
What? It's happening.
We're going to have to change your catchpatch from I haven't seen anything.
Almost 100 episodes later?
Oh, man. Oh, yeah.
What episode are we on?
We're on 95. We are narrowing into 100 episodes of this shit. I cannot believe we've reached this far into... And I just tossed an e-cig over to Brittany and she caught it.
Between my fingers.
That was very amazing. But I can't believe we're almost at 100 fucking episodes of this bullshit.
Oh my God.
And people are still enjoying it.
I
some
don't know.
people are pain.
We keep sidetracking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's fine.
Anyway, so I've seen Psycho.
You have seen Psycho.
I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes. Do you see the influences from this story into those movies?
I'd say so, yeah. Like, well, definitely Psycho. With the mommy complex.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know about Texas Chainsaw.
Well, for the most part, Texas Chainsaw more goes off the mythos that people created after Ed Gein had been discovered and stuff.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense now. It took me a second to click.
Yeah,
I was like,
the cannibalism rumors, and they go above and beyond with the whole DIY stuff because, in Leatherface's house, he's got bone chandeliers and all that sorts of shit. We referred to the killers this month as real life boogeymen, and I gotta say, Ed Gein really is what I'd call a true boogeyman.
Oh yeah,
this is fucking creepy. Just this droopy-eyed, half smirking, creepy dude just waltzing out into the fucking graveyards and stealing bodies. That shit's scary. And
it never got caught.
No, that's the crazy part.
When would he have gotten caught if he didn't kill people?
Well, the thing is, and a lot of people do say that, is like, well, okay, if somebody would have seen him out there robbing graves, right? It's like, yeah, but when you really look into what Plainfield was, where he was living at the time, it was kind of so spread out. It's basically, if anybody's familiar with Oklahoma, it's mounds is what Plainfield was.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, it's mounds. So like the graveyard, no, nobody probably would have batted an eye.
I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah. But, if you joined us through this month so far, these episodes are a bit different from what we usually do. Now, normally on our episodes, especially if this is your first episode, as we always say, I'm sorry. But if this is your first episode, typically we take a movie. Brittany does the synopsis. She reads through the movie, kind of like we're watching it together. And then I offer trivia and all sorts of fun stuff. And we talk about dicks and vaginas and all sorts of shit. And assholes. Oh, man, that comment.
Oh, my God.
The best comment in the world was put onto our Escape from New York episode we did, where it was the worst podcast coverage of Escape from New York ever. All they did was talk about buttholes. And I was like, that could be the description of our fucking show. That could be the description. Because
that's our motto.
Well, because the best part of Night of the Horror File is it's fucking water cooler talk. That's all we do. Because it's like, yeah, we all know these movies. We all enjoy them. Some of these you may not have heard of. And so sometimes I do kind of cover those a little bit more in depth, but like it's like what I like to say about our show. It's like if you got a bunch of friends together and talked about a movie. Oh, and that's all you're doing. And of course, everybody's going to bring up stupid ass humor and shit like that. So that's what we do. But these episodes are a little different because first we take a look at the movie and figure out if it's a good film. First of all, like, what are we dealing with here? Is it a good movie?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you do kind of want to, even if you're making a movie about a real life person, you do kind of want it to entertain you.
Right.
And we'll talk about if this film does that. But we also look at the real person and see if the movie captures that story. If it hits it beat for beat and at least captures the essence of who they are.
Right.
Like with Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. That movie was completely fictional, but I think it captured the dirty butthole, droopy-eyed essence that was Henry Lee Lucas.
Dirty butthole.
Yeah. They didn't shower. Anyway, go listen to that episode if you want more of that. But we also mix in a lot of dick jokes, and in today's case, severed vagina jokes as well.
Nice.
Oh,
that's what my vagina feels like right now.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
We had hard sex anyway, nobody wants to hear that. The comment on this episode is going to be like, worst coverage of Ed Gein ever. All they did was talk about their hardcore sex. And I'm going to put that on the website too, because that's going to draw everybody in. Wait, what?
But not in a porn way.
Not in a porn way. No. Not going to describe it. But anyway, back to the movie. Directed by Chuck Perello and written by Stephen Johnston. Ed Gein from 2000, or as its first title, In the Light of the Moon, which is a reference to a very intriguing scene later on. That scene, man, it's so good. But it takes a more cold, hard, fact-based look at the grave robbing and female skin wearing Ed Gein, who shocked the world with his crimes in Plainsfield, Wisconsin. So we have a ton to tackle here. So let's just jump right into it, shall we?
I guess so.
Okay.
So a couple go into Lee's asshole and fuck him until he dies.
Holy shit. Well, that's a new one. How do you come up with a new one every episode?
Because I just think of how I just want to kill you.
If you're just joining
go
us,
with it.
Brittany has a different murder scenario for me every episode when I interrupt her.
Stop interrupting me.
I know. All he did was talk about Lee's butthole this time. They make Plainfield seem like a nice, quaint little town, right? Just picturesque little village and stuff like that.
Right.
And I guess it kind of was, depending on your idea of picturesque village. But Plainsfield was what people like to call where it was what people like to call the great dead heart of the Central Plains of Wisconsin.
Oh, fuck. What does that mean?
It's just a terrible, terrible area. Not now, obviously, but like back then. Wisconsin's beautiful. It's a beautiful place, but like they said the soil out there was a sickly pink and it was all flat and infertile lands. You couldn't grow much out there and shit like that.
Oh, shit.
Sorry, I was just thinking, it's like, God. It'd be like one of those places that you see in the cartoons where the rain clouds only go there.
Wow.
They only visit there. So Plainfield pretty much exemplified that dead heart. And at the time, the town was labeled nondescript by local maps and travel papers, and the population never got above 800.
Oh, wow.
It was so depressing that the fucking body of water nearby was called Sand Lake.
What the fuck? That's fucked up.
So indeed depressing. Now let's clear up a bit ahead of time. Ed Gein was not a cannibal.
Well, that we know of.
We will talk about it. But he also has the lowest body counts of these guys, but he does get lumped in with the likes of Dahmer and Bundy.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, a lot. And I think it's just because of his macabre nature and stuff like that. But like that's a question I had to ask you is like, what would you classify this as? He's a grave robber, first and foremost. And he is a murderer, but he's not a serial killer.
Schizophrenic?
Yeah. Oh, hardcore schizophrenia and before the time of medication. So,
man, I don't know.
Also, I have a theory, and I didn't just come up with this. I'm making it sound like I came up with this idea, but I do think that Ed Gein wanted to be a woman.
Really?
He was fascinated with being a woman. And we'll talk about it more into the episode as we go. So let's go ahead and get into the movie.
So a couple goes into the Plainfield Cemetery. They start to make out and they hear something. The guy doesn't want to stop, obviously.
Yeah.
But the woman is freaked out. So they end up leaving. Then we see Ed peeking his head out of this grave that he's digging up. Dun, dun, dun.
So have I asked you this question before? Would you have sex in the graveyard? We've talked about this. I think
we have had sex there. That's not what I meant.
We could.
We've talked about it. Yeah, let's go.
Let's go have sex in. Oh God,
a podcast.
Local podcasters arrested for having sex in a graveyard. I don't know. I don't know.
Would we get caught?
Right. And this is the only youngish people we really see in this movie besides kids.
Right.
Like there's no teenagers or anything.
No.
And Ed Gein, one of the bad parts about this movie is they do show Ed Gein younger twice as a teenager and stuff like that. But then it's just Steve Railsback the entire time, even when he was, because there's a scene later on when Ed and his brother are walking together.
Yeah.
they're supposed to be like 30 something there, like 38. It's like 40-year-old or 45-year-old Steve Railsback. It's just funny to me.
Am I allowed to talk now?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm
okay.
sorry.
So back at Ed's house, he has a dead woman on his kitchen table. He puts on an apron and pulls out an anatomy book.
And he really did keep a bunch of anatomy books and stuff and
I
study
mean,
them.
you got to learn how to cut the vagina out.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't want to do it wrong.
You don't want to
right?
hurt the vagina.
What is
okay?
a wrong way to cut a vagina out? Is there a wrong?
Did he brush the hair? That's what I want to know.
Well, what you want to do is you want to cut around the hair, so you can keep it.
Right.
You want it all together. That's
Right.
what you want. You want to be careful with the lips. Don't want to bruise the lips. Okay, Ed. Okay. So Ed's pastime was indeed grave robbing, as we have alluded to.
A bunch.
A bunch. And he was his own Martha Stewart, as I said. But this scene here, where you see him, it's like he's trying to raise this lady from the dead at first. He sits there and says, like, rise up and stuff like that. It's really creepy.
Very.
He really did think that he could raise the dead by willpower.
What?
Yeah. He would go, when his mom died, he would go out to her grave and try to just imagine her coming back to life. Like, he thought, he had it in his mind that he could raise the dead at one point.
Wow.
And throughout it. It's so weird. Like, if you really study this character really deep, man.
Not character, person.
Sorry, this is not a character. This was a real
This
person.
is for real life.
And the thing is about this movie is they do hit those facts pretty dead on. I mean, for the most part. So, like, when you're watching this, you're like, this person really existed. Like,
That's creepy as fuck.
but sometimes he'd go rob these graves, but also a weird part of it is he would often bring the parts he didn't use back and replace them. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
That's a lot of work.
Right? It's like some kind of weird, morbid respect thing he did.
That's weird.
It's like-
That's too much work.
It's like, well, waste not, want not, Let's just go put these parts back.
I didn't want these nipples.
I got the vagina. Ed, you just got too many vaginas. 9 is enough. Let's go.
Too
return
many?
some. What was really funny is he like treated these graveyards as his own personal shopping centers, like his grocery stores or something. So he would go and he'd be like, well, yeah, I gotta go back. God damn it. Oh, I forgot the feet. Let's go back. I forgot the feet at the store. I gotta go back.
But I really want to return this left rib.
Yeah, don't eat this one. It's a little too much. A little too much. It's just so weird. When he was arrested, they actually had a hard time with this part of his confession. And I mentioned at the first episode of this month that, like, that was their hang up. They could not wrap their minds at first around the fact that Eddie Gein was going out to these graveyards and robbing these graves. It was easier for them to assume he murdered people.
Because murder is better than
Yes.
grave robbing.
Well, because that's fucking scary. And it really is.
I mean, yeah. Think of all the work you have to do. You have to, like, dig the hole, do all the things, and then put all the dirt back in the hole.
I mean, they always say, when you work that hard, you really want something. He really set out to accomplish his goals. He really did.
Something. Why is that so funny?
But in their minds, it would be impossible for little Eddie Gein to pull this off. Dig deep down 9 times in some graves. He confessed to 9 graves, gave him a list and shit. But what they didn't know was that at this time, all he had to do was dig down 2 feet, and there was this like wooden tomb type thing, and they would put the coffin in these wooden tombs.
Oh.
They explain it as some kind of like weird protection thing for the body, but to me it just sounds like laziness at the time. Like, because you didn't have a backhoe or anything. So.
Right. So, but wait. So if he goes back to return part, then he didn't only do 9 diggings.
Well, maybe. See, when he gave them a list of 9 graves.
Right.
They found what they could tell. They found at least 11 bodies altogether
Holy shit.
in his house that they could piece together, that they realized were 11. That's
Right.
how they counted them. There's no telling how many times he actually did this.
That's true.
Like, really. Like, when you start thinking about it. So he could have been doing this
he
a
could have
lot.
lost track of how many times.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it was like way too easy for him to get into these graves. And even going back to replace the parts, all he had to do is dig down the 2 feet. And there he was. I mean, he already cracked it open. You
Oh,
know,
that's true.
not to be really morbid. I'm just gonna,
Then don't.
I'm about to use, I almost used the Pringles slug. Once you pop, the fun don't stop.
Oh my God.
You know, he just couldn't stop.
It was just so much fun. I just think of the smell.
Your Honor, you ever had a can of Pringles? You can't stop at one, you know. Gotta keep going back. 9 vaginas.
9.
9 vaginas.
Anyway.
Not 7. Hey, what did the 7th vagina say to... Wait. Oh, I got the joke wrong. Never mind. I just fucked up 7, 8, 9.
Oh my
fucked
goodness.
it all up.
No, it's what did the 6th, or why was the 6th vagina
Okay.
scared of 7, the 7th vagina?
Okay.
Because 7, 8, 9.
Vaginas.
Yes.
9 vaginas.
See what I mean?
Oh, shit. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, so cut to another day, and some kids knock on Ed's door. They go inside his house and ask for ghost stories, and they're playing cards and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the kids wanders upstairs, and he sees heads on the door, and he gets freaked out. And Ed tells him that they're shrunken heads, even though in the movie they're full-blown heads. Anyway. And
got him in the war from my cousin in the war. It's like, really? You just sent
it's
those?
just a whole head.
You
Like,
just sent those a parcel? Like,
oh, I got a package.
although at the time, maybe. I
Maybe.
don't know. I
That's
don't know
true.
if they were very tight on the mail at that point. It's just like,
Probably.
what the hell's that? Another head. All right, well, get it to where it goes. Rain or shine.
When I think of shrunken heads, I think of like
A little tiny
Beetlejuice.
head. Have you ever actually seen the real shrunken heads?
No.
They're like slightly smaller than a regular head.
Oh, okay. So those could have been shrunken.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, they weren't in real life. Those were actually just
Oh, okay.
severed heads he had hanging around.
Just hanging out.
That's one thing.
Decoration.
Keep in mind, like I said, you know, he was his own Martha Stewart. He had heads for show and heads for wearing. I mean, he had all of it. He was.
Anyway,
Oh.
and he ends up kicking the kids out.
Right. So the kids around Plainsfield loved old Eddie Gein, and he liked him too. In fact, it was said
Oh, I bet he did.
that because no, he was not a diddler.
Why are you defending?
He was not I don't know. I really don't know. But it was because of his nature, and he actually related to kids more than adults. He got along with them more.
Yeah, because he was
not
mentally ill.
He is not the Pope. Oh, I thought you were making a molestation.
No, I'm saying he was mentally ill.
Oh, I was gonna say. It was like he is not the Vatican who sit there and deny gay people rights, but anyway, we're not going to get into that. There's a boy blowing the Pope. Let's just cut it to that. Okay. Anyway, he was. What's really funny? What's really fucking funny?
You're just like caught up on these.
I know, but what was really funny was some of the people used Ed as a babysitter most of the time and stuff like that.
Oh, that's weird.
And when you think about it, you're like, wait, I've seen pictures of this guy, this half smirking, creepy dude. You just let babysit your kids,
right?
Well, they did, and what he would do. And this sounds bad fucking ass. He would do magic tricks for them. He would regale them in stories of Nazis and war crimes and cannibal headhunters. I would have fucking loved Ed Gein as a kid. This would have been amazing.
Because you're a psychopath.
Yes. And there was a guy in our neighborhood who would tell us old war stories and shit like that. And my sisters and stuff didn't know I was going over there. Like me and my friends. And I was telling him, I was like, I remember this old guy. He used to we used to go in his house. He'd tell us old war stories and shit. And my sister looked at me and was like, were you molested? I was like, no. No, he was a kind old man. She
was
was like,
milkshakes?
oh, he was kind. No.
Did he have milkshakes?
No. Not every old man who regales you with war stories is a molester.
I mean,
Now, the Vatican, on the other hand. We're sorry.
no, I'm not.
But this situation really did happen where a few of the neighbor boys found his heads. And after that, kids didn't really just go around the old Eddie Gein house no more.
I mean, it's a little creepy. So Ed goes to a store to get some mouse traps and overhears a woman talking about how she's going to have heart surgery. He gets introduced to her and she seems a little freaked out by him. And even the shop lady, Colette, is kind of weirded out too.
Right.
But she says he doesn't mean any harm and she feels sorry for him.
What's really weird about this movie is, in our last episode on Dahmer, right? They changed all the victims' names and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
They only change this person's name, which Colette in this movie was actually Bernice Warden in real life.
Oh, okay.
Who we find hanging in the shed later on. But no, that was actually Bernice Warden. And it's really weird because they don't change Mary Hogan's name.
Oh, that is weird.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Maybe it's a family thing.
Well, her son was the fire marshal, which interesting story. When Ed Gein was sent to the asylum and stuff like that, his house burnt down. So some people had broke into, because they were going to have this big they were
estate sale.
This sounds fucked up. Yeah, they were going to have an estate sale because someone had bought his property. 10-1 was going to turn it into a horror museum.
Oh,
obviously.
really?
I mean, you're going to make a shit ton of money with that kind of shit. But somebody was going to probably turn it into that. So what they did, probably all the townspeople got together and burnt this fucker down.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the fire marshal was Bernice Warden's son.
So,
So
he headed it off.
Yes. And I believe he was also a deputy sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, remember the time? We're talking about the 50s. Like,
Right.
The dead heart of Wisconsin. So the butcher was probably the coroner.
So they probably, the fire marshal was probably like, okay, we can burn this down, but we can do it safely.
Probably, because it didn't burn down any of the other places around.
They're like, okay, we can do it safe. We can do a control burn on this building.
Burn his house down. And now when they did tell Eddie about it, one of the guys who was working with him, one of the psychiatrists and stuff, pulled him aside and was like, Eddie, your house burnt down. And what he said was, because you're thinking, oh, what did he break down and stuff? Like, probably for the best. It's like, damn. Because that's a curious thing, because a lot of the Plainsfield people would say that, like, no, he's got you guys all fooled. He's not crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Because they would say, he's not insane and stuff like that. Because the confusion comes from he understood what he was doing was awful.
Right.
And it was bad. He just, and I'll say this a couple of times, he couldn't grasp why, though.
Right.
Like when you would talk to him about it, just didn't understand. He knew it was bad, but he didn't know why it was bad. And that's very hard for me to explain.
And the only reason why he knew it was bad is because people have told him it was bad. If nobody would have told him it was bad, he would thought it would have been just fine.
Right. That's the thing. Because he's sitting there and stuff. He's like, well, I guess it was bad. I guess I did wrong.
Right.
Was it too much nipples? Were there too much nipples on the belt?
Right. And that's the thing. Like, we do it in everyday life. Everybody does it. Where it's like you could say a word wrong. Yeah. You don't know that you're saying that word wrong until you hear somebody else say it, or somebody tell you that you're saying it wrong.
Right.
And then you're like, well, this is how I've always said it. Like how you say iron. It's not weird to you.
Right.
But it's weird to me because I think you say it weird.
Yeah.
And until I pointed it out, you're like, oh.
And it's also important to remember that Ed wasn't exactly the talk of the town. I mean, the general consensus of Ed around town was that he was a bit of an oddball. Everybody would call him. Was a bit of an oddball.
Well, yeah, I would say so.
People didn't really befriend him, but they also kind of just left him to his own devices. So it wasn't like they were picking on him or anything all the time. Well, I don't know. Probably. There's probably a lot of jokes about creepy Eddie. Some of his neighbors actually took advantage of him as well, borrowing things and never returning them, renting parts of his land, but never paying the rent.
Oh,
like
shit.
they'd pay once and then not pay again because Eddie's just too trusting.
Right.
Like, the list goes on. In his interviews, he did state that maybe people cared. If people had cared more, maybe he wouldn't have done what he did. But I don't know, Eddie. You had a box of vaginas. I did. That's a little much. Like, I didn't have a lot of friends either, but I'm not severing vaginas.
Yet.
From the dead.
Yet.
Which, yet.
Oh, my God.
What? Oh, what is this
Wait,
revelation?
you did cut vaginas out of Playboys.
Oh my God, I did. Oh my God, that's creepy. I never even thought about that. Well, let's tell this story real quick so people are like, what the fuck is she talking about? So when I was younger, and we might have told this story on another episode a long time ago, but when I was younger, and to this day, I can't tell you why I did this, but my dad had found a notebook under my bed because he found his Playboys out in the shed, right? His giant collection of Playboys. He had found them with holes cut in them, like the vaginas and boobs were cut out. And so he went into my bedroom. He found this med notebook with nothing but vaginas pasted on every page. Vaginas and boobs. And I never thought about this until now. That's creepy.
He just did it in real life. You just did it with a picture.
Well, he wanted it more, That's what I'm saying. He applied himself.
Your ADD kicked it. Your ADHD kicked in, and you're like,
I don't want to go do that. I mean, that's a lot of work, but I could just cut pictures out. Oh, that's scary.
They're less
man.
smelly too.
That's true. They did ask him if he ever had
Fucked a
sex
dead
with the
body.
bodies,
Yes.
but he was like, no, they just smelled too bad. It's like, that's it. That's the only reason, Eddie. Anyway.
Do you think he fucked his mom?
What?
Do you think he fucked his mom?
I don't know because Augusta Gein, there's a really weird story behind that, and we'll kind of talk to her about her in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one misconception, and they put it in this movie. There's a lot of rumors around her catching him masturbating.
Uh-huh.
But I'll tell you why I don't think that's real.
Okay.
Because there's a whole other part to that that's very confusing. And I don't think she would have punished them for masturbating.
Okay.
But anyway, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But I think he wanted to fuck his mom, yes.
Yes.
But his mom did not like sex, first of all. She was not a sex-filled woman or a woman in needs. She wasn't very beautiful, even though Ed would say differently. But I believe the word handsome comes up a lot when people would describe her. She was a very large woman. But
anyway.
Steve Railsback, by the way, plays Ed Gein in this movie, and I think he does a fantastic job with this character, with this person character thing. Anyway, listeners know Railsback from films like Life Force and The Stuntman, which The Stuntman is such a fucking great movie.
Yeah, it is.
Academy Awards. Don't make fun of The Stuntman. Anyway, but he also played another true crime subject in the TV miniseries Helter Skelter. Railsback played Charlie Manson.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to see that.
Yeah, I was really torn whether to do Ed Gein or Charlie Manson, or the Helter Skelter miniseries, because I was like, well, we have that extra episode this month. I could just bump that off, and we could just do 2 episodes on Helter Skelter.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, but
but Gein's my friend.
Yeah, and do I want to do 2 episodes on Charlie Manson?
No, because Ed Gein's my friend.
Charlie Manson.
Don't ever do that again.
All right. I died in prison. Anyway.
Anyway, so Ed's at a bar and he's having drinks and he's opening up to the bartender, telling her that nothing seems real since his mom has died.
And that's true. After the death of his mother, Augusta, Ed really went fucking downhill. That's when the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs shit started happening. He started seeing shit on his farm. And remember, this was a time when you didn't have a lot of comforts we have now. You know, he didn't have Facebook to get in contact with his old high school, you know, set up a date and shit like that. He did almost date somebody, but that didn't go well.
Not surprised.
But he was basically in that house 24/7 by himself. So imagine that isolation, first of all. Then there's one story how he told how he went outside one day and saw these big black birds with blood and gore dripping from their beaks just staring at him.
Oh, shit.
Like,
oh, fuck.
Yeah. And they do capture his visions a lot in this movie. They embellish them, obviously.
Right.
Like, as Harold Schechter puts it, and that's where I get a lot of my info on Ed Gein. Go read that. Deviant, I believe is what it's called, by Harold Schechter. But he said, you know, he lost his one true love, his mother, at this time. So it sent him into a spiral.
Ugh.
Because his mom would preach all about how the hussies of the world are killing her, are tearing everything apart. She blamed all the world's problems on women.
Yeah.
Except for herself. She was, you know,
she was perfect.
You know, and that's why I say, you know, Psycho, the movie at least, I believe does take a heavy inspiration from that because, like, a boy's best friend is his mother, right? They do kind of hint in this movie that he may have had an incestual relationship with her, but from all accounts, that didn't happen.
Right.
I do think he wanted it to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So if one of our children ends up being like this, can you, like, intervene?
Well, they have medications now. You see, we catch these things earlier.
Like, what do I do?
I don't know. Man, there is. Okay. You know how everybody's like, why in the 70s and 80s? And this is completely off topic, everybody. I'm sorry. But everybody's like, why in the 70s and 80s were there so many serial killers active? Mm-hmm. Why was it such an explosion of serial killers in that time? Well, one theory I've heard is that, like, the fuel used to be leaded. So you had just lead in the air.
Right.
And they say, like, a lot of lead and stuff causes insanity and shit like that and causes aggression. Right. Because it wasn't just serial killers in the 70s and 80s. The 70s and 80s were a violent fucking time in America. I mean, oh, yeah. It was violent. Like, we think we got it bad now. Like, think about then. And so, like, one of the theories is maybe the lead from the fuel was poisoning the air and shit and getting into people. Yeah, it's really creepy. Because, like, you got a lot of people who come out of that time period who were overly aggressive. Think about Trumpers. Think about that video we saw of that boomer lady sitting in the middle of Walmart because she got told to wear a mask and she's just sitting there fucking screaming her head off like a little baby.
I did not see that.
Oh, yeah. That kind of shit. Like, that's what they say. Maybe that shit happened. Maybe all these people got lead poisoning. It's just a theory that I read. So I'm not saying you take that with a grain of salt, but it's kind of an intriguing theory.
So Ed ends up having a memory of his mother praying before dinner. And then they're working on the farm, and Ed goes to where his parents are, killing a pig. Uh-huh. What is that called?
They're gutting it. They're dressing it out.
Dressing the pig. That's what I was like. I was like, I know there's a word for that. And his dad yells at him, and because he's crying. And then mom starts yelling at dad. Dad ends up slapping mom, and then mom takes her anger out on Ed.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how it would happen. Only George Gein was not as like overbearing as this. George Gein, we'll talk about him in a second, but he did not have a foothold in this fucking relationship. Augusta Gein, though, was an overbearing, highly religious, stern disciplinarian and self-assured in all her beliefs, and she would spread and preach these beliefs to whomever she talked to.
Oh, right.
Basically, Augusta would have been a Trump voter.
Oh,
Shots fired.
My gosh.
For real, though, she was the embodiment of an evangelical believer who looked down her noses at pretty much everyone in Plainsfield. She got it in her mind that the ills of the entire world could be blamed of the hussies and whores who wandered the streets of Plainfield. That's how she acted to these people.
Oh, my God.
So women were terrified of her. and fucking men just felt like she was just the biggest pain in the ever-loving ass that could possibly walk the earth. She believed sex was a despicable act.
It is.
And that's not what you said last night. But only for procreation. That's what she would claim. And she said, she even said to Ed once, if we were meant to have sex, the Lord would have made it enjoyable. It's like, God damn.
Oh,
I honestly think she didn't even have normal sex with George Gein, Ed's father. She probably hiked a leg up on the counter and just had George stand there and cum in his hand and rub it on her. Just staring at him the whole time angrily. You better not enjoy that, George. So help me God. If I see a smile.
You're dead.
Or she just like just fucking milked him like a cow and just like
What?
put it up in her.
Ew.
You just let me fucking finish it, you waste of space. And that's how she was towards George Gein. She would berate him any chance she got. She only married George because he was tall and looked like he could work a farm. That's the only reason she fucking married him. George wasn't, like I've said, George was not in real life very good at abuse. Here we see him in this movie. He's smacking her around, yelling, and everybody's scared of him. No, that's not really how it was. He did lay the beatings on the boys, but when it came to Augusta, he would come home and George was what they called an aggressively lazy drunk. He barely did shit. He never worked barely at all on the farm. And when his family died when he was younger, people would tell him, well, you should have died with them.
Oh, fuck.
So this motherfucker had an insane drinking problem, and he wasn't an abusive drunk, really, for the most part. They said when he would come home, she would just start laying into him with these insults. Just fucking laying into him. And he'd just start flailing at her, right? In what sounds like a slap fight. Like just flailing at her open-handedly. Never closed fists, just open hand slapping. And Augusta, after it was over, she would always drop to her knees and just pray for his death. Just fucking take him now, Lord. Just take the piece of shit now.
That sounds like me in the middle of a podcast fight.
Just fucking die.
You die already.
Why aren't you dead? Just fucking staring at him in the middle of the night. Still breathing.
Look at him looking all peaceful.
But
not
can you
dead.
imagine that relationship? She just, I don't think she couldn't have had sex with this dude. Why did she have sex with this guy? It's just fucking.
He was tall.
She just let him plant a seed in her musty old hole? Like, what the fuck is that? But anyway, that's a little brush of who Ed's parents were.
Oh my goodness.
And there is
a
lot of rumors that like when he watched this pig being gutted when he was younger, that he had an orgasm. Like you'll see that in a lot of things, but again, in the more trusted sources of this stuff, that never happened, and he never said that. Like he just remember it being fascinating, watching this pig. Maybe he had some sexual urges, but I don't even think he knew what sexual urges were. So who the fuck knows? I mean, because the man died a virgin.
That we know of.
I don't think Ed got lucky.
There sure were a lot of vaginas, though.
Oh, God, moving on. I don't think Ed liked women that way.
Then why did he like vaginas so much?
Because I think he wanted one.
Oh, that's right. We talked about
Yeah, I really do. I really do buy into that.
So anyway,
Back to the movie.
Ed goes to another shop in town. He gets invited to Judy's house for dinner since all he bought was pork and beans, and apparently that's all he eats is pork and beans.
That really is all he would eat.
And while he's standing there about to buy his groceries, he picks up this knife and starts playing with it. And Judy starts getting a little freaked out.
Now, this was an actual thing that happened, but it's kind of an embellishment of an actual story someone told where they may have almost been a victim of Ed's, where they were talking. I can't remember the exact names or anything like that, but she said she turned around one day when he was in the store and he just had a knife in his hand, just standing there staring at her.
Oh, shit.
Like, he didn't sit there and rub it on his fingers and shit like a creep, but he was just staring at her, and then he just put the knife down, and that was it. And so it's just like...
Mama said, don't kill that one.
And that story came out after he got caught, because then somebody's like,
oh, fuck, I almost died.
Bit of an oddball.
Right. Well, at dinner, Ed tells them about a dead body and the slippage of skin. Ugh. And Judy tells him stop talking about that stuff.
This scene's actually pretty funny.
Right?
And then the dad's like, I think I just lost my appetite.
So they sit down and watch TV, and Ed's having this like PTSD flashback of his life. Yeah. There were stories of how he would just sit there and it's like, it was like something was torturing him. Like he was remembering something or something was happening. Oh, yeah.
Like he'd grab the sides of his head sometimes and just.
Because, yeah, he probably was having a.
Yeah, he's mentally ill.
Right. Right.
You're talking about a schizophrenic person without medication.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No.
No, it's definitely not good.
No. So then we see Ed visiting his mom's grave and crying about the land and the people in the town.
Right.
And he says he's treated like dirt and no one gives him a chance. And he's praying that she will come back to him.
That was true. He would constantly blame everything around him for his actions and stuff like that. And I kind of find it as, yeah, sure, I guess they weren't nice to him. I don't know. It's not really a great reason to start murdering Ed.
Right.
But I think it was just him trying to grasp why he did all this. Like, because he didn't know what the fuck was wrong with him. But one thing that would always happen when people would interview him, as soon as they'd ask him about his mother, he would break down crying.
Oh.
And I don't mean just a little bit of weeping. I mean like ugly crying. Like, she was too good for this world. Kind of shit. He would say that all the time. She was too good for it. She was a saint and pure at heart and shit like that. The whole time. Just
pure at heart, wishing for her husband's death.
Dad, you fucking die, George. I wish you'd fucking die.
But she was so pure.
Couldn't even get hard. It was like a wet noodle slapping my vagina.
She didn't even want that.
No. Oh, God.
Do you think they'd like turkey basted it? She was like, I'll let you come this one time, but in a cup.
And if you enjoy it.
So help me.
Oh, and George the entire time, I can't drink enough. It's just not murdering me fast enough. So, like I said, this film is, I think I said this, but it's more like a collection of facts about Ed Gein. It's kind of like our Dahmer episode. They just it's just a bunch of clips put together.
Right.
Like, that's what I said last episode, I believe. Like, it's kind of like you're watching one of those like documentaries where they have the reenactments. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like we got reenactments without the documentary in between. Right. That's how it feels. What I do appreciate is those real like the real footage of him, like at the beginning. It bookends this movie. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I like that too. So Ed has another memory of him masturbating in the bathtub. and Mom pulls out a belt and whoops him with it.
Whoops him.
Whoops him. Okay, first of all,
Okay.
this masturbation story.
Okay.
I just have a couple of questions.
All right.
Before you go into details. How old was he supposedly supposed to be?
I think he's supposed to be a teenager here, but I don't know because
This is like a 30-year-old man in this bathtub.
But we don't know because like she would still make these boys every night men
Right.
sit next to her like little boys while she read passages from the Bible.
Oh yeah,
Like
we
they
do see
would be
that
like
this movie.
in their 30s. His brother was trying to get the fuck out of there because he's like, I'm a man. I'm not supposed to be doing that. But he would be like kind of just, all right. But Ed was hanging on her every fucking word, you know.
Yes, mother. Yes, mother.
Yeah.
Yes, mother.
Well, Ed was her little pet project. You know, she was trying to raise a man who wasn't tempted from all the evil women and shit like that. And constantly saying, you know, like, all you need is your mother and shit like that. Okay, so like I've heard two different versions of this masturbation story. I've heard this one.
Uh-huh.
The detective comic or whatever he's reading there is just kind of added in. For this movie, I didn't hear if he was jerking off to that or what. But like I've heard two different stories. I've heard this one and I've heard one where she pours scalding water on him when she catches him like that.
Oh shit.
But it's my sources that I've read and stuff, it mostly all comes from Harold Schechter's book. And that guy is amazing when it comes to true crime. He's a great true crime writer. And this is kind of just, I feel like this is an assumption they just threw into the movie. Because there was always that story going around that she, you know, beat him when she found him masturbating. Just because if you think about what she preached, you know, sex is the devil and sex is this and that and sex
Right.
isn't enjoyable. So you would kind of assume, well, that she probably would have beat him.
Right.
Like, if she caught him masturbating. But what I've read is the complete opposite of that. And that's what I mean. Like, it contradicts this story. Because Augusta Gein would sit there and read passages and stuff, and she would preach masturbating instead of sex. Like, she would go on and on about how the sins of Odin were preferable of the sins of foul women. So basically just masturbate.
Oh.
Lesser of two evils was in her mind.
Right.
And so that's what I mean. It feels like it contradicts this story a lot. Because if she was doing that, then she wouldn't have beat him.
Right.
So I don't know. There's a lot of those, you know, because after this all broke and stuff, everything got telephoned.
Right.
I mean, if you believe the rumors and stuff, Ed Gein was eating people, fucking killed a bunch of people, because they never really mentioned grave robbing in the thing unless you get to the jokes, which we'll talk about the Geiners in a little bit. But.
So Ed's at home and he hears a weird noise. Then he has another memory of his mom reading to him and his brother. And Ed's hanging on to his mother's every word. And his brother Henry doesn't want to listen to it anymore. Then it fades into them being older and still listening to their mom reading the Bible to them.
Right. And I think they said that they were probably 38 at this time.
Oh, really?
Like they were adults, like grown ass men, just having to sit there and listen to their mom preach from the Bible, which kind of what grown ass men do now in church. When you think about it. I was just making fun of these two, but really, anyway,
They just went to church every night.
Oh God, Augusta's non-sex enjoying ways. Vaginas are the devil.
So a woman comes over to Ed's place and he's showing her around and she sees all these books that he has and she's asking him about his reading and he says he likes to read about cannibals and headhunters.
He was obsessed with that kind of stuff. Like, he was obsessed with that shit. He got really into like, there's this one Nazi woman he would read about. The werewolf of Buchenwald, I believe. I can't remember her exact name, but the forehead on that lady. But anyway, he would get into these Nazi stories and stuff of war crimes and stuff and Nazis experiments and shit like that. He was really into that shit. He was also into like detective comics at the time, and I don't mean Batman detective comics. I mean like there's these true detective comics and stuff that people would
yeah.
read back then, and most of them were all rape stories. Well, okay, not all of them, but most of them were all
Right.
rape stories. So he would read about that shit.
Nice. Nice. Anyway, so he's showing this woman around the house because he's trying to trade it.
Yeah.
And he's not doing a very good job. He tells her he wants to trade his whole farm for her little house, and she's like, I'm gonna have to pass.
And really, this is kind of a sad thing to think about because Ed knew he was fucked up.
Right,
Like,
right.
He knew something was fucking wrong. And the extreme isolation of this giant farmhouse he lived in, which if you look at the real pictures of the real farmhouse, it's a big house. Oh, it was all getting to him. You know, he knew he was going down this route. So he tried trading lands with his neighbor so he'd be a lot closer to town. Maybe he wouldn't have these urges because although he was sick, I believe extremely schizophrenic, he did know this was wrong. Now, most of this little interactions they have was kind of true. Like she went in, and the one thing this movie doesn't show is how nasty this house really was. Ed never threw a damn thing away. So you imagine he's sitting there eating cans of pork and beans and never throwing them away. So there's just cans of pork and beans everywhere. Yeah, bad. There's shit everywhere.
I think they tried to portray that the house was dirty with the rats.
They do. They try to do a good job there, but it's
Right.
oh God.
Oh. Anyway,
You think when he had the skulls, he was having them talk to each other like puppets? Like, because I imagine being isolated out there, you start making up your own like conversations. You're playing board games with a bunch of skulls. It's my turn, Eddie. No, it's my turn, Ed.
That's a little weird.
No, you two settle down. We're going to have another fight tonight. We have another fight tonight. I'll have to send you to the room. Like just, and his pork and bean farts the entire time. Oh, there's another one. Oh, Lord, that's a bad one.
Ew.
Everybody looks like they caught the death in here. Get it? Oh, we got it, Ed.
Oh my God. Anyway, so Ed notices that the woman that was having the heart surgery had died. He sees it in the paper.
Yeah.
So he goes and unburies her from her grave, takes her home, tries to command that she comes back to life. And this is the same woman from the beginning of the movie. Yeah. It's not, is it?
Is it? No. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. Because
No,
I think
it's just the
other
same position. Like, so you may have got a little confused there.
Okay. Anyway.
They don't do a very good job to distinguish a lot of ladies in this movie from apart from each other besides Mary and Colette.
Right.
Or who's Bernice. Again, that is a weird
I bet the family
choice.
just didn't
It
want
might be. Because
that.
I think... because I think these... Like, Mary Hogan didn't really have a lot of family.
Right.
Like, she was kind of... Her life was kind of a mystery because she came from, like, I think Chicago or Brooklyn or something. And she was a big old Irish lady. And she had ties to the mob. So who knows what was going on there?
Who knows? But anyway, he thinks he sees her head move. Dun, dun, dun.
Good night, Eddie.
Oh, my God.
Good night, Eddie.
Stop.
Good night, Boney number 2.
Anyway, Ed has another memory. His dad's dying, and Mom wants the boys to take him to the hospital. Then it cuts to them seeing their dad in the casket, and Mom's very upset. And Ed wants to know why she's crying when Dad never loved them.
He really did say that too. He was like, "I never loved us anyway."
So why was she upset?
He wanted Ed. I don't know.
She wanted him dead for a long time.
I don't think she really was upset. I don't think she cried. I haven't read what she did at this guy's funeral, but I don't think she was sad. Finally, the Lord answered my prayers. Finally, he gets around to killing this piece of shit. But George Gein, He didn't die from pneumonia. They try to say he dies from pneumonia in this.
Yeah.
That he died from heart failure due to alcoholism. He basically drank himself to death. And the townspeople said he died with a smile on his face. So I feel he probably drank just enough to be free of his wife and weird little Eddie.
Oh, that's too
one
much.
thing to think about with Ed Gein that I'd like to bring up, and this is from earlier. I mentioned this earlier. He had a fascination with women's skin and stuff, creating that whole fucking suit that we'll talk about. But he was also. They also explained that like he acted more feminine.
Oh,
Around the boys at school, and more feminine as an adult man. And he was fascinated with sex change operations and how if that could work and stuff like that. And have you ever thought about changing your sex and shit like that? And people were like, "What the fuck, Eddie? It's 1950."
right.
So
maybe Ed should have just lived in 2020.
Well, the thing is, what if he had gotten on schizophrenia medicine and gotten a sex change operation?
Yeah.
Would it have solved his problems? It's something to think about that I really like to ponder.
The real question is, though,
What?
the real question is, would he still eat pork and beans?
Probably.
Okay.
There's another one.
I don't know why I asked that.
But I think maybe he did identify him more as a woman than a man.
Maybe.
I always kind of wonder that. I mean, obviously, no one was going to ask him that.
They didn't know about that stuff back then.
And again, like we see this time and time, that they did not care about that shit. They didn't want to hear about that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they could hear about all the murder, but they did not want to hear about that.
We don't want to know about the weird shit.
Yeah, no, so we really don't have a lot of interviews where someone asks him that.
Right.
And he kind of stopped giving interviews after a little while. He didn't want the press and stuff like that. He became more reclusive at the hospital. But, like...
Probably because they had him on some meds.
Probably. I think he got sane while he was in the hospital.
Well, I don't know about turn, but...
Well, they did try to retry him, take him to court to try to put him in prison after... Because they were saying, he's doing better. But, like, the judge was like, nah, man, just go back to the hospital.
Right.
Like, we can't let you out. I can't do that.
Right. Then this memory fades into another memory where Henry, Ed's brother, tells him that he's moving away to live with a woman and her kids. So they get into a fight about their mother, and Ed kills Henry. And then starts a fire around him, trying to make it seem like the fire killed him. And then it shows Ed and his mom crying at the casket.
Yeah, which is almost like a comedic beat. Like if you in this second part, it's like, oh, they're at the casket again.
Right. Here we go again.
Well, the thing is, I don't know why they told it this way, because it's not more exciting than the actual way. It's just kind of like, why did you change things? Because it's not fully known if he actually did kill his brother. It's assumed, and they're pretty sure he probably fucking did. But the way this actually went down was him and his brother were fighting a wildfire on their property one day. And Ed comes back alone. Well, the sheriff and fire marshal went out to find his brother. And Ed basically just kind of led them right to the body.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And when they asked him, how the hell did you know where he was, Ed? Ed's just like, kind of funny how that happens. That was it.
Oh.
So he probably did kill his brother, because the thing was, his brother had fallen in love with this divorced woman and her kids. Now, if you so his brother was going for women.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Which was, the crimes of the century, probably in Ed's mind, the way his mom had a hold of him and stuff like that. And his brother even did try to talk it, like, hey, Ed, you spend a lot of time with mom. This is getting weird. Man.
Right.
You should be. And the sad part was he did kind of look up to his brother.
Right.
Like, because his brother at the time had this business that he was running that had, I think, Jamaicans or something working on construction. It's such a weird story. But but he looked up to his brother because he saw his brother, getting out in the world and making something of himself. There's something that Ed just could not do because he was just so under his mom's titty that it didn't work. But but yeah, so I think he killed him because of that. I think he was going for that divorce woman. And, he was like, going for the hussies.
She's hussy.
Yeah. And maybe he said something bad about his mom. And there you go. Don't speak ill about Ed Gein's mother.
You will die.
Horribly.
So he didn't admit to killing his brother. No,
he didn't admit to that. But, it goes back and forth. The coroner's report said smoke inhalation, but there's also, they said there's bruises on his head.
Oh, yeah.
So he may have got knocked out, and then Ed just left him out there with the fire, hoping the fire would get him.
Yeah.
But his body was untouched. Like, the fire is in a whole other area, but he's here.
That's weird.
So maybe he did inhale some smoke, but I don't think that's the way he died.
Right.
Or he's got to get to a point to where he can do that. So I think he just knocked him out and let him just breathe in the smoke, and he died that way.
Right.
So
I wonder if Ed moved his body.
I don't know. Maybe. Funny how that happens. Why is my Ed Gein starting to sound more and more like the Quint from Jaws?
I don't know.
Like a doll's eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Here's the swimming with bow-legged women.
What?
We'll get to Jaws eventually. You'll understand all these references I've been throwing at you.
Anyway, then we get this weird scene of Ed hearing and seeing things in the woods. He hears his mom telling him to kill the dirty talker, the bartender.
Uh-huh.
So Ed goes to the bar, watches the bartender, then invites her to his house. She takes a bite of food, pork and beans, and she starts coughing.
Served out of a skull bowl, by the way. That you catch that?
Yes.
Oh, what a lovely bowl.
Oh, by the way, this is my favorite scene in the whole world. Okay. She starts coughing, and he says, "Oh, by the way, that's just the rat poison."
Yeah.
What? And this all just ended up being a fantasy.
Yeah.
And he's still at the bar.
Because his friend Pete, who we haven't really talked about, but his friend Pete's like sitting there like, why don't you just ask her out, Ed?
Right.
Because he's just staring.
Straight staring.
So Mary Hogan was the town's bartender. And she was known to be a little risque and foul-mouthed, as most bartenders are.
Right. As she's shoving her bra in these men's mouth and pouring shots.
They're taking a bra shot? Bra shot? I've never heard of that.
I just thought about how sweaty that would be.
Fuck. I don't know if I could be that drunk. Because I'm thinking, and it's like, I know I'm supposed to really like boobies, but at the same time, do I want to drink some stranger's sweat?
Yeah, no.
Nah, I'm sorry. You got to be like Selma Hayek or something. But
yeah.
I'll drink her sweat. Yeah, but that's gross still. Anyway, so when she did disappear, though, because I'd mentioned she had maybe a little bit of ties to criminal organizations and two back home. When she did disappear, people just assumed it might have been that or something, or maybe a burglary gone wrong or something like that, because they don't depict it in the movie. But Mary Hogan disappeared, and there was a good length of time before Ed got caught.
Oh, wow.
There was a big gap of time. But also, what they also don't mention in the movie is that in the dead heart of Wisconsin, as we've said, people were going missing left and right.
Oh.
People would just go missing, and that's it. Like, there's a story about how this girl went missing, and they tried to tie this to Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm.
This little girl just went missing because she was walking home and stuff. And I think she was supposed to walk to a neighbor's house or something like that. Look up the story yourself. But
right.
She just went missing, and no one ever found her. Didn't find any bodies or anything like that. So, and we talked about this, it was a lot easier for people to go missing back then.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot easier for people to just up and go missing because nobody cared.
Right.
It's never been illegal for you to just disappear. It's never been illegal.
I've thought about it before.
So who knows? But no.
Maybe you'll just disappear.
But no, so they just lumped her into that,
Right.
Yeah.
Meh. So Ed is at his mom's grave, and he says he's going to do it, and he isn't going to chicken out, and he's going to punish her for her sins. And he's talking about the bartender.
Yeah.
Mary, that's her name. So Mary's closing up the bar, and Ed goes in acting weird. He follows her to a back room and shoots her, then drags her to his truck, steals the money from the bar, takes her back to his house. And she's still alive during this whole thing and fighting him the whole time. And he has her tied to a bed, and she tries to scream, but he's like, no one's going to hear you.
I know. They give, just like in Dahmer, they try to make Ed Gein out to be like a super villain at times.
Right.
And I don't like that when they do that in these movies because Ed Gein was fucking just crazy.
But he may have said that, just maybe not the same.
I mean,
like,
a lot of this shit's made up. Like,
right.
Because Ed never really, his 2 murders, he never talked about them. When they would get to him, like most of the info they get is from like pieced together from investigations and
yeah.
shit, you know, a good assumption of what happened. And so like, sorry, I was thinking we'll get to Bernice Warden or Colette in this movie later on. There's a funny story there, but like Mary Hogan, like he would just be like, well, I guess I did it, you know. I'm sure I did it, but I don't remember. It's just blurry. You know, he would just say, you know, this is blurry,
yeah,
real blurry. And they do say, you know, schizophrenics and stuff without medication. Again,
right.
We're not bad mouthing schizophrenics, but they will black out like during stuff.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
they'll have spells and stuff like that. So maybe, I don't know. It's one of the things where they're like, a lot of the people in town and shit in Plainfield would say, you know, no, he's not crazy, because like there's a lot of this shit that kind of points to premeditation.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, like if you look at the crime scenes, like he left blood. He never cleaned up anything. He left his shell casings behind. Like,
but they never had forensics back then, though.
And that's true too. But like
they didn't know.
I mean, you can match a shell back then. You can match a shell to a gun. That's how they got him.
Well, yeah, you could do that, but like with the blood, before 1980, they didn't even know blood types existed.
Oh, that's true.
Really.
DNA really didn't start taking off really until the 90s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get where you're coming with that.
And like that's how before the 90s they would match blood types, but there's only like 6 blood types. Like,
true, yeah.
So it could have been anybody, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and he never denied it. He just was
Right.
saying, you know, I don't remember.
Right.
The details are a little fuzzy, is what he'd say. And that's the problem with a lot of these movies and stuff, is a lot of the info we do have about these crimes and shit come from the killers themselves.
Right.
You know, because there's barely any witnesses half the time.
Well, yeah.
So you never
Then
know.
they wouldn't be serial
You never
killer.
know. And and really, here's something to think about, is like with some of the crimes, you a little embellished at times. So who knows?
Oh yeah.
But anyway, but pretty much what we see happen in the bar happened. You know,
Oh, okay.
where he shoots her and stuff. That pretty much happened. I mean, you can tell that that's what happened. But all the stories of her in the house and stuff, that was all made up for the movie.
Right.
But it does. I think I like that they leave that in and they do that also, because like it makes you see that, again, like I said, you know, he knew this shit was wrong, but he didn't grasp why, because this entire time he has her tied up, he's like trying to nurse her back to health somehow.
Right.
With pork and beans.
Pork and beans.
Yeah. So like you can see his disconnection with reality.
Right.
You know, I mean, the motherfucker had boxes and noses. He's fucking crazy.
Oh yeah.
4 noses.
Oh,
4
weird.
noses in a box. It's really weird numbers, like 9 vaginas, 4 noses.
Okay. So the next day, someone goes to the bar and sees that there's blood everywhere. The police go to Ed's house to talk to him because he was one of the last people at the bar.
Yeah.
And the officer just asks him if he remembers anything weird from the bar, and he says no. So the officer leaves.
But they kind of make the sheriff in this a little bit more proactive. The sheriff, I'm not going to say anything bad about him, but like, you know, it's a small town sheriff. So
Right.
When this case broke, they said this fucking ruined his life.
Oh, really?
Like, because he was hounded by reporters. And think about it. I mean, the worst you probably have to do is go move a dead cow out of the road in Plainfield,
Right.
Wisconsin. So you're not really investigating a lot. You don't have a lot of big crimes going on in a town of 800.
Right.
So like,
Right.
this was so big. And they said, you know, because he eventually died of a heart attack. Like, so the stress probably got to him. And they said, the townspeople said that's what killed him was this case.
Right.
So
Oh, that's terrible.
yeah.
So Ed ends up reading the Bible to Mary, feeding her pork and beans, and has a flashback of his mom's death.
By the way,
There's so many weird
it's
things.
just all the fucking pork and beans he was eating. And he heated them in a can on the stove. So imagine you have all these body parts, and there's Ed in the middle of it with the worst pork and bean farts, as we've said, you've ever smelled. The smell in that place must have been fucking terrible.
Maybe the other 5 noses ran away.
Maybe. The smell.
Yeah,
I can
get it.
only keep 4 of them. We'll only keep 4 noses.
I had to think of.
The 5th one ran away with the spoon.
Oh my god. Anyway, go ahead.
Ed, that joke made no sense. Anyway, but weird sense of humor is an oddball. Anyway, but my favorite part of this movie, and I don't know if it's anywhere around here, but did you catch the just random vision he has when he's reading that Nazi book where he has?
Oh, I didn't even put that in here.
There's just a blonde naked Nazi sitting there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was this just a gratuitous tit scene?
Yes, it was.
That just snuck in? Like the filmmakers are like, there aren't tits in this movie. Let's toss in some tits.
Right.
And I'm like, well, alive tits, I suppose. I mean, we do see some dead ones. 9
Oh.
vaginas, everybody. 9 vaginas.
So then we see Ed salting and putting a bow on a vagina. Then we see him cooking something in a pan, which alludes to human meat.
Yeah, it's
But-
buying into the rumor.
But you keep saying that he's not a cannibal.
No, he was not a cannibal. Because the thing was,
Wait, listen.
listen.
How do you know he wasn't a cannibal? Because he said he wasn't?
Yes, but
So you trust the schizophrenic.
I kind of do. I kind of believe Ed Gein.
He doesn't remember if he
I mean, like I
murdered
said,
somebody.
Ed Gein would have been a nice little, little man doing magic tricks.
He doesn't remember
I think really
if
it's just the heads, the dead body parts. That was just
he doesn't remember if he murdered 2 people, but you trust him to remember if he ate them?
But he does remember okay, they didn't find much of Mary Hogan when they found her. They found her head
Because
in
he
a
ate
paper
her.
bag. Hang on. They found her head in a paper bag, but they did find the complete body of Bernice Warden, strung up, and they found her head as well. Now, my thing is, all the other body parts and shit like that were all dead bodies. These were embalmed. You cannot eat dead flesh, embalmed flesh.
Okay, but
Okay.
they didn't find the body of the other person, so he ate her.
Yes. No.
Oh,
No, he did not
I
eat
have
her.
it on
Okay, I
recording.
wasn't listening.
I have it
No,
on recording.
He did not eat her. But okay, let me explain something. So here's where they travel into rumor area with the scene, right? And a little later on. But Ed himself said he did not eat human flesh. And like I said, I'm taking his word for it. which says something about me. But when they searched his house, when they finally caught him, they had seen a heart in a bag next to the oven.
Delicious.
They reported that. Exactly. Now, through the press, though, that got telephoned into, they found a heart in a skillet on the oven, halfway cooked. So, everyone pieced that together and said he was a cannibal. And that's where you get that rumor. And I really do think that's where that rumor started. Also, there is this story of one of his neighbors that he brought venison over for dinner one night, which we do see in the movie. Now, when he was asked about this, Ed said he never killed a deer in his life, which I know I'm buying into Ed's story when he says he is a cannibal, but at the same time, I mean, it does sound like he fed people to his neighbors, but Ed said he saw haunted birds and probably a bunch of other shit, and he's seeing naked Nazis. He had a rifle and a gun, obviously, so he may have killed a deer and fucking forgot about it, or found a fucking deer.
Okay.
Or hang on. Or just bought some venison off of one of the hunters in the area. It's important to remember that Plainfield, one of their biggest things that everybody did was hunt deer. And this was during the deer season where every man in the fucking town, 800, remember, would go out to the woods and hunt deer. So he could have just got some. And I'm sorry, that lady couldn't tell deer meat from fucking human. All accounts of human meat, which, yes, I've researched it. All accounts. God, something's wrong with me. I'm cutting vaginas out and I'm looking up how a human taste. I'm going that way, you guys.
It's happening.
The podcaster cannibal. Just my goofy ass in a true crime book one day. But like doing the thumbs up thing I do.
Oh my God.
Y'all can't see this, but anyway, like I fail to see where she couldn't tell the difference, because I'm sorry.
What is it supposed to taste like?
Okay, human meat is supposed to taste like pig.
Okay.
That's why we get the nickname long pig in some cultures, you know.
Okay, but
have you ever had a venison steak?
No.
It's a very distinct flavor.
Maybe she thought that
and
he got mixed up.
And this lady never ate deer meat in her life living in Plainfield.
Okay,
You see what I'm saying?
Okay,
right?
but listen.
Okay.
But listen, maybe he did feed her venison steak, but he still ate Mary Hogan's body.
And she never, I'm talking about it like she was like, he fed me people. No, she never claimed that. It's just people put it together.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He ate it.
I don't think
he did.
I don't think he did.
You just said that he couldn't remember if he killed people or deer.
No. I said he may have forgot he fucking killed a deer.
Okay, maybe he forgot that he ate people. If he could forget that he killed people
this
and
is what
deer,
we're going to fight about.
I'm going to die on this hill.
Not in front of the listener. Don't do this in front of the listener. But anyway, no, like one thing.
He ate them.
One story that's
he
true.
Tried it at least.
Let's go back to Milwaukee for a minute. But this is a story I didn't get to tell on the Dahmer thing. But like Jeffrey Dahmer really did. He brought a lady in his apartment building sandwiches one day, and she didn't know what kind of meat that was that she was eating. So she probably really did eat people.
Ew.
Yeah. Anyway.
Was it like a cock meat sandwich?
Oh, God. It's just a hoagie with a dick hanging out.
Just like from that movie.
Jeffrey?
What's that movie that we watched and they had the severed dicks?
Oh,
at the end.
Fucking blood sucking freaks. Go listen to that episode. The dick dogs.
Dick dogs. Maybe that's what he fed her, was a dick dog.
Gross. Anyway, let's go to less grosser Ed Gein for some reason. Why is Ed Gein less gross?
He ate people.
I don't think he did, man.
He had to have at least tried it.
I don't think he did.
At least one time tried it.
I don't think he did.
If I'm killing people and I'm chopping them up, I'm trying it. I'm trying it. I'm going to fry it up like a steak.
I mean, he may have gotten to that point because he's only killed 2 people, maybe 3. Like, so maybe he was working up to it, but I don't think he actually
I think he did.
All right, let's move on.
I will die on this hill.
He loved his pork and beans.
So you just add a little meat in there.
Pork and beans has meat. It has pork.
Does it?
Yes, pork and beans. That's the title of the fucking food.
But I don't think it really does.
No, it has pork. You've never had pork and beans?
I don't like pork and beans. No. I don't like beans.
Oh, you've never had a poor people dinner where you heat up a can of pork and beans
No.
and eat it?
No.
Oh, my fucking Lord.
I hate beans. You know I hate beans.
I need to see a therapist. I'm
I know
enjoying my
you
pork and beans, cutting out my vaginas and pasting them in notebooks. Oh, shit.
Have you ever killed an animal?
We stuck an M80 up a frog's asshole one time when I was younger.
Have you ever had a head injury?
Yes.
Oh, I'm calling in the big guns here.
The big guns.
I don't know who that is,
Or
but
the big guns.
I don't know. I'm calling your dad.
The suicide.
I'm calling your dad.
The fucking serial killer squad or something.
I'm calling your dad.
Oh my God. Oh God. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, and you want to start a cult really bad? Oh. Oh, did I marry? Oh, who did I marry? Anyway,
A lazy serial killer.
Is it my turn?
I'm too lazy to kill. Too lazy to kill, the Lee Evans story.
Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
So Ed's talking to someone about, he's talking to Pete about Mary.
Yeah.
And he tells him that he took Mary and that she's at his house. And Pete doesn't believe him and he just thinks it's a joke. And,
Well, he does tell it like a joke in Ed Gein fashion.
It's not a very good joke,
He's
though.
like, well, she's not missing. Well, she's at my house right now.
Pete's like, what a funny joke.
You got a sick sense of humor, Ed.
And then Ed is going a little crazy, he's going around town telling his joke to other people, and he asks Colette if she would go on a date with him after telling his said joke.
Uh-huh.
She's like, no, you're more of like a son to me.
So Ed did actually love this fucking joke after Mary went missing, and he would tell this to everybody who he got a chance to.
That's fucked up.
And he really did have this weird, morbid half smile the whole time he would be telling you this. So just imagine that. Like, you guys hear Mary Hogan's missing? Well, she's not missing. I got her at my house right now.
And nobody thought to be like,
well, no, because
Let's
he's
go
been
check
so
it out.
fucking. That's the thing. Hiding in plain sight. That's what you do. You be weird your entire life. And then people are like, nah, man, he's just a fucking oddball. He didn't kill nobody. And the whole time you got him in your house and you're just telling everybody.
I'm hiring a PI.
Don't go in the shed in the backyard.
Which one?
Both. I've been busy. Anyway, moving on. The FBI is going to be tailing me now.
I'm hiring a PI. I got stimulated.
You're going to.
Ew.
Ew.
I got stimulated. I got money. I'm hiring a PI.
They're just going to have the worst, boringest time. You know, the most exciting thing I did today was order Carl's Jr. for breakfast.
So Ed's really losing it at this point.
Oh, God.
He's dancing around the farm in a woman's skin suit, howling at the moon. And then he has a dream that his mom's alive and in the house. And she tells him that Colette needs to die now. And that Ed needs to do the Lord's work.
Which, okay, he made this suit, the infamous, what the police called a Mammary Vest, and complete with leggings and a face mask. He created this, he said, as a way to like stave off going to the graveyard. You know, he couldn't get to the graveyards at night. You know, he couldn't quite make it out there, so he had this suit he'd put on and go dancing in the moonlight. So imagine it. Like, I'm actually thankful, like, no one lived that close to him. Because could you imagine just, like, if he was just in a normal house, you're just like, man, you know what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to go have a few beers out on the deck, watch the stars, and you're just out there drinking, having a good old relaxing time. And then here comes your neighbor out dressed in a woman's skin suit. Just, it's like, yep. Last time I'm coming out here.
It's just Ed. He's just an oddball.
Just an oddball. but they I kind of wish they would have went more into detail, you know, how he made this. I think I'm the only sick weirdo that actually wants to know the step-by-step instructions. Like, how'd you do it? Like, how'd you keep the titties intact? That's what I want to know. Like, was there sand involves? Like, how'd you keep the tits on there, Ed? Like, the boobies.
What?
I would like to know more of how he did it.
How did he keep them? What?
He constructed a suit out of
Okay,
a woman.
but how did he keep them? How did he keep the boobs? What?
Well, I'm assuming you're skinning a dead body. How would you keep the boobs on there? Because they said these
Then you
boobs.
just leave the fat.
Oh, maybe, but that stuff goes bad after a while. Did he just?
So does skin.
Oh, true. I don't know. I think honestly, Ed could have been a hell of a taxidermist.
You
Like,
can't
just-
sleep in my bed tonight.
Just a hell of a taxidermist. Think about that.
You don't get to sleep in my bed tonight. You're freaking me out.
I'm wanting. I'm sorry, everybody, but like I would like to know. I wish people would have interviewed him more. To really went into detail how he made the suits.
I wish people could see my face right now.
Anyway, let's get back to the movie before the FBI
Who
comes
did
in.
I
knocking.
marry? I need another husband. Mine's broken.
Mine's broke.
I need him fixed.
Mine's
please.
broke. True Crime Month is almost over. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Anyway, so Ed goes into Colette's shop and asks about antifreeze.
Uh-huh.
The manager guy, what's his name? Brian?
Yeah. In this, it's Brian or something. I think
Okay.
this was actually her son in real life. Bernice Warden's son.
Oh, okay.
Was actually in this part.
Anyway, Brian's there, and he doesn't like the way that Ed is looking at her. She tells Brian that she's fine. She can handle Ed just fine, and not to worry about him.
Just an oddball.
Just an oddball. So Ed gets up early the next day, waits for Brian to leave to go hunting.
Uh-huh. And the true story of how he did this is actually very funny to me because, when he did this, he comes into the store and immediately asks, this guy if he's going hunting all day. Like, so I just imagine. So, you going hunting all day? Yeah, Ed. It's gonna, it's hunting season. That's where I'm going tomorrow. All day, though. Just all day out in the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be far away, right?
Yeah.
All day.
All day.
All day.
All from sun up to sundown.
And Bernice, she's going to be here
Yeah.
all day
She's got to run the store. Yeah.
without you.
Yeah, I'm going to be hunting.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's
Why?
good. That's real
Why?
good. I got to go. I got to go.
Why?
I got to go.
Tell me why.
But Ed loved Nazi stories and detective comics and horror stories. He loved all that shit. Like I said, he's me. So a lot of his influences probably came from all that. Now, what I want to see more in this movie, as I've already said, is how his home decor work, how he constructed all this cool ass shit. Now, we get a little with the vagina, where he's salting the vagina, putting the bow on, but I think we could have used a montage, him sawing skull bowls and reupholstering chairs with skin, just doing all his fancy footwork. I don't know, what kind of song could you have to like, you're the best, no doubt. No one's ever gonna keep you down. Why he's just sitting there like sawing a vagina with an anus out of it.
I'm over you.
Brittany's staring at me.
I got to get rid of him. I can't do this anymore.
But you're not curious, though. You're not curious how he can. Okay, let's move on before I incriminate myself.
No. No. So he goes to talk to Colette, and he goes to leave after a weird interaction. And he gets in his truck, and his mom's in his truck telling him to go back in. So he finally goes back in, and he asks if he could see a gun from the case. So she takes it out for him. They're chatting, and he ends up putting a bullet in the gun and shooting her.
And like I said, earlier, he didn't hide any fucking evidence.
Right.
I mean, Bernice Warden's son was like, okay, I remember the weird motherfucker who was in the store. So they just looked at the
Right.
receipt of that fucking antifreeze thing at the time, right before she went disappear.
Right.
And they just pieced it together and found him.
See, if she would have never wrote that down,
Yeah, exactly. And true.
we could have the biggest cannibal in the world.
Maybe. I'm sure the dude was still like, no, man, he kept asking me if I was going out in the woods all day. You're going to be out there all day, though.
All day, yes.
All day. Okay. So, like I said, this is actually Bernice Worden. Her name's been changed in this movie, and like you said, I'm leaning more towards somebody who was threatening lawsuits.
Yeah,
because like I said, I don't think this guy is labeled as her son or anything like that.
Right.
So we don't get that. Now, Ed would always say these crimes were a blur. Like I said, he would never go into full details of what he was thinking. He always would just say he didn't know, or, the real blurry. But he would admit doing it. I assume it kind of goes along, he's like, well, I mean, you said I did it, so I guess I did.
Right.
And I was there, so I guess I did it. But one thing we did get was her last words, Bernice Worden's last words, and I'm sorry. She looked, is this funny to anybody? I need to know if this part's funny, because it's funny to me, but she looks out the window and said, and her last words were, I don't like Chevrolets, and then bam, he shoots her.
But why did he?
Like this murder brought to you by Ford.
How do we know? Took me a second. So, but how do we know these are her last words?
That's what he said. Again.
Again?
I'm
Again, you're trusting him?
I'm trusting him.
I think you lost it. I think you lost it.
Oh, but he got to Bernice's vagina right away. When it was fresh, and this is the vagina he actually wrapped with a red ribbon. It wasn't Mary Hogan's. I'm glad this is the last I'll be talking about this on the show. But he also, this one was a little special because it preserved a chunk of her anus along with it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So his mom calls him on the phone when he isn't doing anything.
Uh-huh.
And he says he's going to take her home and nurse her back to health. And his mom tells him that he needs to take the delivery truck. So he does.
Yeah, which also is another thing that people are like, well, how was he so crazy if he knew not to use his truck, the delivery truck? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but then again, he left all the evidence there. It's not like he was trying to hide that much.
Right.
I mean, because that's how they pieced it together. The gun was gone off the fucking shelf. And
Its name was on the list.
Yeah.
So later that night, Brian gets back and he sees what has happened. And he calls the police to come investigate. He blames Ed. And the police don't believe him at first. He's like, it couldn't be Ed. Ed wouldn't do that. So Brian drives to Ed's house and Ed doesn't answer. So he goes and he's snooping around.
Why are you laughing at this?
Like, does he really like snoop around? Is he like...
Well, okay. What really happened was, I mean, they kind of caught on pretty quick that it was Ed. Bernice's son, was like, hey, this and this happened and stuff like that. So the cops actually did all this that you're seeing now.
Right.
Like you had.
It's just funny because it's so dramatic.
It is very, they try to make it so dramatic, but there isn't really a lot of drama there. Really how it went down is two cops were out at his house. One went into the shed where they found Bernice's body eventually.
Right.
And at first they thought, there's something hanging here. And then they turned around and there's a fucking gutted corpse. And so which again, remember this is the 50s and this is a small town in Wisconsin. So, these dudes were like shook.
Like, what the fuck?
Oh, there's vaginas in the cupboard. Okay, there's more, you guys.
So yeah, Brian finds this woman in the cellar upside down, and yeah. There's that.
Yeah, she was dressed like a deer, and how they show it in the movie was how they found it, because there are photos. There are real photos of the crime scene that you can go look at online right now and see how that body looked.
Oh, so,
yeah.
Wow.
Well, anyway, I'm not going to go more into that, but so this is the most famous part of Ed's story. The body of Bernice Worden dressed out like a deer in his house. The weirdest part, though, man, you guys got to go read that coroner's report, because that dude was weirdly thorough. And like his assistant who was taking notes was like writing down names for what they were going to call Ed Gein. So, they were trying to like boost it up a little bit. But,
Oh, yeah.
But there's one part where he says Bernice had very full breasts for her age. It's like, why did we have to comment on the corpse's boobs?
Maybe they thought that Ed killed her for her boobs.
I don't know. Just sitting there fucking, well, okay, we got a female killer set of tits. Just like,
A killer's.
I get it.
Oh my god.
Oh my fucking Lord. Anyway, moving on.
So Ed's at dinner at Judy's house. Apparently he ate there a lot.
Yeah.
And he brought them some venison.
And I'm sorry, Ed Gein makes a fat joke here. I don't know if you caught it.
I didn't.
But he's like, because she's like, oh, he's going to, she's talking about her husband. He's going to be so excited when he sees you brought over venison for dinner. And he's like, well, yeah, I know how you folks like to eat. Like, was that a fat joke?
No, probably not.
I don't know.
I wouldn't have taken it as a fat joke.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. If some dude looked at me and was like, well, I know how you like to eat, so I brought you some of that. Hey, man.
Or it could be a test to he only eats pork and beans.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the police go to Ed's house and find Brian puking and pointing at the cellar. Brian drives to the house because he knows Ed's there having dinner. Runs inside, points the gun at Ed, and Ed said that someone was framing him.
Yeah, they have a standoff here for some reason.
Right? So the police come and tell Brian that he can't kill Ed, that they're going to handle it. And he finally puts the gun down so they can arrest him.
And now, of course, like I said, the movie makes it more tense than it actually was.
Right.
By most accounts, the sheriff basically just showed up and was like, well, Ed, got to come with us. I think he did something here. But what they did get right is Ed Gein really did just immediately go into someone's trying to frame me.
He was like,
two skeletons in there, isn't it? They're trying to frame me for it.
He was like, in the movie, he's like, we found a dead woman hanging in your cellar. What the fuck?
Someone's trying to frame me.
Yeah.
Now, one thing the sheriff says is, oh man, I'm going to be that guy, aren't I?
Oh God, what?
I'm going to be, actually... Because the sheriff, it does bother me, though. The sheriff says, I hope you fry for it, Ed, and stuff right before he puts him in the car in the movie.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin didn't have a death penalty or an electric chair, so I don't understand.
Maybe he thought that they were going to find one.
Oh, God. I really did just pull a, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, Wisconsin did not have a death penalty.
Maybe he thought they would just find one. Find an electric chair.
Find one. They just had one down.
They just borrowed one from a state close by. I don't know what. Where's Wisconsin?
Where's Wisconsin?
I don't.
Oklahoma school systems, everybody. Oklahoma school systems. Hard at work here.
I'm really trying to think.
It's up north.
Is it up there by Michigan? Like the lakes are between them?
Yeah.
Am I right? You don't even know.
Sort of right. I don't know Oklahoma school systems.
You don't know either.
Oh, fuck. We need a map. We've got to get a map for the show. Anyway, let's get back to the movie.
So, Ed's mom's talking to him, tells him that he has done the Lord's work. Then they show all this weird shit that Ed has in his house. Then it shows Ed kind of confessing to the police, well, just talking to them about stuff. Then it shows footage of him actually being arrested, the real life footage.
Yeah, which I like that. I like that little touch.
Oh yeah.
But so one thing that wasn't really that, well, it's creepy, but it's stuff you won't hear people talk about that they found in his house because, you know, if you go back and listen to the first episode of this month, I read off the complete list of things they found in Ed Gein's house. So we didn't have to do it here.
Did you?
Yeah, I read off the complete list.
I didn't listen to you.
I know. Don't listen ever. But anyway.
Okay.
What they found was one of the things they found that wasn't really that gross was, well, it's gross, but a huge collection of used bubble gum.
Ew.
And a collection of boogers.
Oh, delicious.
So like I said, he's like a really gross cartoon character, but
like a boogie wall?
Yeah, but yeah, well, not maybe not, because you know it's all the, you know, the problem was the vaginas. I mean, the problem was the body parts and the heads. But so I guess he's not a cartoon character. But Ed Gein is one of the few heavy hitters here who actually did get deemed insane, you know, when they caught him. I mean,
right.
We've discussed it, but like I said, he knew what he did, but he was so disconnected that he didn't know why it was wrong.
Right.
And couldn't grasp the bad things. My favorite stories of how they got him to confess, because they started feeding him. You know,
right.
Typically that's how they get a lot of these guys to confess. They start treating them good and stuff. Yeah. And he hadn't been eating very good. He'd been eating pork and beans. So one of my
human flesh.
No. But one of my favorite stories is where they brought him a slice of apple pie with cheese melted on it, you know, some Wisconsin cheddar.
Ew.
Which again, I think me and you discussed this. I was like, why did people like apple pie with cheddar melted on it?
I could see you eating it.
I don't know, man. Cheese isn't good on everything. But anyway,
the keto people would say
but he
different.
complained about how dry the cheese was. Like, that was his complaint. He started complaining about how dry the cheese was.
Bring him some wet cheese, okay?
Yeah, and I think that little story too also kind of like really shows that he just did not grasp this situation at all.
Right.
Like he wasn't grasping the seriousness of this. It's like, no, Ed, we found the vaginas. 9 of them. Oh, I know. There was 10, but you know, some of them turned green. That was something he actually said. He was like, he tried to preserve them, but he was like, well, some of them just kind of, they still turn green on you. Like, what? All right. Now that I've made
Do you think he at least licked them?
I don't know. Don't want to talk about it. God.
Oh, that's what's grossing you out?
Well, yeah, you know, pictures of vaginas pasted is one thing, but, you know, licking actual severed vagina. Oh, God. Oh, God, that's true crime, March. We're not even done. We still have an episode. But you know, Ed got sent to the hospital for the insane and actually flourished well there. I mean, he said, you know, they treat me pretty good here. There are some people that are pretty disturbed, though. That was a real thing.
I would say so.
That was a real thing he said. But he lived out the rest of his days there, where doctors said he was a model patient, and they never had trouble from old Ed. There were stories, though, of one thing they would say is that when he looked at some of the female nurses and doctors, he got a little twinkle in his eyes. I think he was probably remembering the good old days. I bet her vagina would look good on my wall. Again, why is it coming out as Quint from Jaws?
I don't know.
10 men went in, 1 came out.
Okay. I don't know anything about that movie.
I know, that's why this is funny. But anyway, Ed Gein is probably the reason we have a lot of slasher films and shit from today. You know, a lot of it, you know, we got Psycho and then the ball went rolling from there. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Sorry, that would have been funnier if he was like cutting balls off, but for some reason, that's what it made me think of.
You're like, can we talk about? That's the thing this month is. I think with Dahmer, we got a lot of penis jokes in. We're getting a lot of vaginas here.
Yep.
But anyway, you know, and we get a lot of our horror genre from this thing. I mean, think about how macabre this fucking shit is. This is creepy. Like,
oh yeah,
it's a very scary case when you really think about it and stop joking about it, as we have this entire time. But Ed Gein does 2000s Ed Gein does a pretty decent job here, I'd say, to get the facts and stuff. But what did you think about 2000s Ed Gein?
It was the most boring movie I ever watched.
Yeah, I think we talked about this. And we talked about this on Dahmer. If you're not really into serial killers and you're not really into these kind of subjects and you don't really know much about Ed Gein, you're not going to enjoy this. This is not an entertaining movie.
It was just...
You
were right. It's the documentary without the documentary part.
Yeah. It's the reenactments.
I needed more.
It's like superb reenactments. Like if this was like a 3-hour documentary and these were all the reenactments we'd see, it would be an amazing documentary.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, really what the takeaway as a film Ed Gein does is that Steve Railsback is a really good actor.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you get here. That's pretty much all you get is just Steve Railsback acting. Like, so if you want to see that, then sure, Ed Gein's a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
But for just a movie, for movie's sake, to be entertained or to even be scared, this is a slog to get through.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it is not scary.
No.
It's kind of gross at moments.
There's like 2 comedic moments.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's just...
Like I said, it's just fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just laying out what happened.
Right.
And I think that's why this holds a 10% on the Rotten Tomatoes website. So, it wasn't very popular. Still isn't.
Right.
But I like it because it does. I mean, it's like I said,
it serves its purpose.
Yeah, and it does lay out the story pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, it embellishes where it wants to and stuff like that, but even the embellishments don't really make this a great movie,
Right.
I love this movie, but that's because I'm so into this shit, you know what I mean? And I like it when these movies try to take more of that fact base. I mean, I've come to the conclusion I also like boring. I like a lot of boring things. I sat through 4 hours of the Snyder Cut the other night and loved the shit out of it while everybody's like, oh God, it's 4 fucking hours. It's 4 hours. And I'm just like, I enjoyed it.
You barely even paused it too.
I didn't pause it at all. I was yelling at the kids to get out of the room. Daddy's watching his program.
I was so glad I was gone for most of that.
No, so I like this. I watch it every now and then, but just for a casual movie to throw on, it's not good.
Right.
This is not a good movie. But that's 2000's Ed Gein. Did you like any bit of this?
The movie?
Yeah. I feel like these serial killer movies, maybe not Henry. I could see you watching Henry again, but
oh yeah,
I don't think these are ever going to be movies you revisit.
No, I'm good. I'd rather watch a documentary.
Yeah.
But I do love documentaries, though.
Me too. Like I said, if we just had a documentary in between these scenes, we'd be happy.
Oh yeah.
But and like I said, they get the facts right. They do all that stuff. So really, sadly, this is one of the most accurate movies based on one of these guys.
Yeah. It is very
That's
accurate.
the sad part. And that shows that there is a weird line that you can't cross. You can't get too fact-based.
No.
Because then you get stale and boring. Because really, a lot of this is boring. True crime really is boring. It just depends on what's feeding it to you.
Right.
Because a lot of this is just, they're just fucking wackos and they're murdering people. This is, it's not as exciting as a slasher movie. We all want it to be, but it's not.
Right.
But on one hand, you have a movie like this that's just right on. Like, it embellishes little bits and pieces, but it's got all the facts. And then you got movies like, whatever, Shockingly Cute, or whatever the fuck that movie is with Zac Efron.
Oh, yeah, I don't know the
Ted
name of
Bundy.
it. It's so stupid.
Then you got that, where he's a fucking rock star, and you love him by the end of the movie.
No.
Yeah.
No, I could have done without
So
it.
you see what I mean? There's a weird... I don't think we'll ever see an excellent serial killer movie. Like, based on a real serial killer. We got American Psycho. That one's great.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
One skirts the line. But anyway, that's 2000's Ed Gein. Now, next week, we don't have a movie for you, but we're going to be discussing a few of the heavy hitters, because we couldn't fit any of their movies in, and I'm not watching that Ted Bundy movie again.
No, I'm not either.
So we're going to be talking about John Wayne Gacy and Ted Bundy next week. And, you know, maybe a few other killers. And we're going to talk about the movies they influenced and stuff, because John Wayne Gacy actually made clowns horrifying. You can credit him
clowns are
for
kind
that.
of horrifying.
Yeah, because, it was the 50s when he did his crimes, the 60s and stuff. So, like, yeah, you can credit John Wayne Gacy for Pennywise. So, anyway, until next week, when we talk more murder. This has been a depressing month.
Yes, it has.
I don't know how these murder podcasts do this, because I'm like researching all this death and violence and seeing crime photos, and I'm like, oh, oh God, I've been watching comedy movies all this week. Oh, it has been terrible. It's like your soul dies a little.
Right.
But anyway, until next week when we talk about the killer clown and the politician, I'm Lee Evans saying stay spooky.
And I'm Brittany. Stay horrific.
And use salt to keep your vaginas fresh.
And bows.
It might turn green on you, though. So long.
Thanks for listening. To get a hold of us and submit your stories, fan mail, and death threats, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and nightofthehorrorfile.com. Our theme song was written and performed by John Brennan, used with permission. Find John at shopjb.bandcamp.com and at badtechno.com. If you like what you hear, leave a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show on your social media. See you next week.